Today's date is Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, and the time is 5 p.m. I would like to call the Indian River County School Board organizational meeting to order. In accordance with Florida Statute 1001.371 and Indian River County School District Policy 0150, the superintendent shall act as presiding officer until the organization of the board is complete. At this time, I'd ask that everyone rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first order of business is for the board to select a chairman to serve for 1 year. School board members, the floor is now open for nominations.
I nominate Sean Frost.
Sean Frost, nominated by Ms. Justice.
Nomination cease.
Are there any further nominations?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. You can.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would object otherwise.
Okay.
I have in the past, so thank you for asking.
Are there any further nominations? It would be appropriate at this time to call for a vote on the nomination in the order in which it was received. All those in favor of Sean Frost to serve as chairman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's my pleasure to announce Sean Frost will hold the position of chairman of the school board. Congratulations, Mr. Frost.
Thank you.
Nancy, please note that it was a 5-0. The second order of business is for the board to select a vice chairman to serve for 1 year. School board members, the floor is now open for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Charles Searcy.
Mr. Searcy, do you accept?
Yes.
Any further nominations?
I'd like to nominate Dale Simchek.
Oh, that's sweet. So, but I'm going to not accept, but I would like to nominate Tiffany Justice. How's that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Justice, do you accept?
I do.
All right, so Mrs. Justice nominated by Mrs. Simchek.
And I just want to say, Mr. Searcy has done a wonderful job as vice chairman and as chairman, and you know, I would have loved to seen him chair again, but I also feel that we have and this is why I say this, no objections to a rotation of leadership is good, because some of us may not be here next year. So we need to have people, and you know, vice chairman usually doesn't, and Ms. Zork, if I had an extra chance to nominate a second person, I just think that it would be good to rotate some leadership, and that's the only reason. I approve of Mr. Searcy as well, so you know, I think either way we are all good leaders, but you know.
Are there any further nominations? All right, it would be appropriate at this time to call for a vote on the nominations in the order in which they were received. So all those in favor of Mr. Searcy to serve as vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sorry, ma'am.
Any opposed?
We have to say nay. I'm sorry. I won't. You know, I'll say yeah. I didn't vote yet. Yay.
You can wait. You can wait to vote.
Wait to vote. Sure.
Okay.
So it was 4-1. What was the vote?
3-2.
3-2.
3-2 right now. We still need to call for a vote.
No.
No, we did last time.
No, because the first person was elected on a 3-2 vote, if that was the vote.
Oh. It's over.
It's over.
Okay, congratulations to Mr. Searcy, who will hold the position of vice chair of the school board. At this time, we will recess the meeting shortly so we can hand over the gavel to the newly appointed chairman, and we will reconvene shortly. Thank you.
I don't care wherever y'all wanna-
Congratulations.
We'll reconvene. It is now 5:07 PM. There is no one to speak. All right, it's time for the approval of the regular meetings of the school board. Mr. Superintendent, would you take it from here? Or actually, this is me. This is my item. Okay, approval of the business meeting dates and times. Present practice is to hold 2 monthly meetings. The meetings are held the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 6 PM for the business portion of the meeting and at 4:30 PM for the hearing officer review, only when necessary. The board is able to schedule meetings as it determines necessary. 2 lists of specific meeting dates for December 2017 through November 2018 are attached. The first list, titled Option A, follows the current pattern and consists of 2 business meetings each month. The second list, titled Option B, consists of 1 business meeting each month. At this time, it would be appropriate to call for someone to make a motion to establish the meeting dates and times.
Move for approval of option B. 1 meeting a month.
Okay, we have a motion for option B, 1 meeting per month. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. Second for discussion. Mr. Searcy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir. The superintendent has the authority to add business meetings as he sees fit during the year. And apparently, by him supporting or offering up this 1 meeting a month, he must feel that it's adequate to get the job done. In addition to that, we'll have workshops, my understanding, on the other Tuesday that we normally would have another school board meeting. And if he feels he can get the job done in 1 meeting a month, I would certainly support that.
Would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, I would. I had some questions and had an opportunity to discuss this with the superintendent. And I have no problem putting the time in for 2 meetings, 3 meetings, 4 meetings. But, ask the superintendent what he felt or what he supported and the pros and cons. We just settled an issue and discussion through policy of clearing teachers. And a lot of the 2 meetings a month was to clear personnel, to make sure that we could get them in and working. The other thing is that the business meetings conducted in the evening, we hire school resource officers, we have people working flex hours, we have people working on the big clock, I call it, and a lot of staff has to stay, including running the sound system and advertising and the costs behind that. So I asked the superintendent what he preferred, and his preference was the one meeting. I'm here to support the superintendent and what he feels is in his staff. The point I made up was, well, we could bring a special meeting forward if we had to do some items. I have no problem, so, it's a consensus issue, but I'm willing to support, especially in a motion, something that the superintendent is in favor of, because I'll do it either way, I'll do 2, I'll do 4, I'll do 1. If one takes care of the business of policy, which is legislation, and financial obligations, including the special budget meetings that'll still take place, and the millage, and all the workshops. So for me, like I said, in support of the superintendent's thoughts, I second in the motion and would like discussion. I have, I have no hard feelings either way. I'll keep coming to 2. 2, I think, has some pros to it. It provides the ability for people to have a public input twice a month. But aside from that, based on the discussion and the support that the superintendent, I'm fine with the 1 with the special meeting. So just throwing that out on some of those boards, I would like to hear how my peers feel.
Further debate?
Oh, sorry. Personally, I don't like the 1 because whenever I get my agenda and it comes out on Tuesday, there is a lot of legwork that goes into researching, reading the contracts, and really understanding what we're going to vote on. And I don't like putting it all into one meeting. I like breaking it up so that it's not so heavy. And I think for us to do our due diligence, we need to have 2 meetings. I know I was open to listening the first time it was brought up, but now being on the board for 1 year, I just don't see how we would be able to, or I would be able to do my due diligence with everything that we would be presented in the 1 month. And I do like the idea that by having the meetings twice a month, that gives opportunity for citizen input. I think it's very important to be here. Personally, I'd like to see us go to 3 to 4 meetings a month, but I know that's not going to happen. So I'm strongly in favor of the 2. I wouldn't want to go any less than that because I think it's important that we're really doing our homework on what's being brought to us. That's my opinion.
Anyone else?
I don't have any concerns that moving to 1 meeting a month would somehow affect my ability to go through the agenda or understand the material or do my due diligence. So if the superintendent is bringing this forward for recommendation, I will support it. I do have a concern about citizen input and stifling that. That is a concern to me. And what I would say and when I thought a lot about it, what I think is that I would say we're here. Our email is available on the website. Our phone numbers are there. My cell phone number is there. So if anyone has any concerns or things that they need to be able to bring forward to the school board, I hope they reach out to us and they do that. Privately in that way.
Anything else?
So do you support 1?
When I vote, you'll know.
Fine. I have 1 motion.
Fair enough. I would like to add that I know that the 2 meetings a month is a bit of a strain on staff, and there are times where certain staff members will have to flex their time, and that may not always be the case. There may not be an employee who's willing to do that, so it would result in overtime. So there are financial considerations of it. This board also has been very good about rising to special call situations when necessary, and also the tweaking of the human resources piece with provisional employment that can be rescinded and fair compensation made has made me comfortable. I've struggled with this as well, along with my colleagues, but I'd like to hear one last final bit from the superintendent, if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things to share with the board and the viewing audience. The 2 schedules, 2 meetings a month right now are scheduled the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month. We also have a superintendent's workshop on one of those Tuesdays. The Proposal B that you are discussing, that's up for approval right now, has one business meeting a month on the fourth Tuesday of the month. The proposal would be to have a workshop on the second Tuesday of the month in the afternoon. So theoretically, the board would still be meeting twice a month. Wouldn't be conducting a business meeting on that second Tuesday of the month, which would be the first meeting date of the month. But that would allow us to get into a routine where we would present information to the board in the workshop on that second Tuesday of the month for discussion and deliberation that might very well be on the business meeting agenda 2 weeks later on the fourth Tuesday of the month for approval or that kind of thing. When I was asked to look at this over the last couple of years, I thought, well, surely we can't do this. We can't go to one meeting a month. Large organization like that we are. Then I looked around and talked to a bunch of other superintendents in the state, and actually the larger districts, almost all of them, only meet once a month. Palm Beach County, for one, which is one of the largest districts in the country, only meets once a month. So the idea is that for a business meeting, the idea is that we need to take care of our business and make sure it's ready once a month. We have the workshop scheduled where we can get feedback and present information. And if we need to call a special session, a special business meeting, the board, as Mr. Frost pointed out, has been very gracious in doing that. The other thing is it financially makes sense. As was pointed out, we do have a deputy at our business meeting, so we pay for that. We do have the lights and the air conditioning stay on longer the nights of the business meetings, so that's a cost. We do have to print special materials for the business meetings, that's a cost. And we also have to advertise in the local paper, and that's a cost. So I had Nancy do some quick math, and we'd save $2,200, almost $2,300 by going to one business meeting a month. And keep in mind, the other concern is that we already do currently in our schedule only meet once a month for 3 months out of the year, November, December, and July. So we've done it and can do it. And so I'm in favor of Schedule B.
Okay. Sir? Mrs. Orr.
I know for our workshops that we get our backup on Friday, and then we have our workshops on Tuesday. I believe state statute or school policy is that we have all the information posted online 7 days in advance of a held meeting. Does that mean we're not going to get our information, our backup information 7 days? Our tasks are doubling, so does it mean that we're only going to have that 1 week to look at all our backup information and look it over? Or are we going to be given more time? Do you know?
I wouldn't expect, and that's a question for the superintendent, but, I wouldn't expect there to be any additional time to look over it. 7 days has never been inadequate for this board member, and I don't know that any other board member has ever said that 7 days. And I understand that there may be more information in each of these, but one thing that I factor into that decision is the fact that again, this board will be meeting and working 2 days, two days every month, other than the 3 mentioned that are already in our schedule. But the workshops will be the presentation of the backup. So we'll have time to flesh through much of that. And then when things, we'll receive our backup 7 days prior to that meeting. And then we'll have 7 days to review and ask questions and pause it and make a decision on a vote. And then we always have the option of not supporting something if we're uncomfortable with the backup. And another thing to remember is this, we are obligated in this organizational meeting and statute to establish a calendar. That doesn't mean that we can't, if we find that this is burdensome, that this board can again take a position, and Mrs. DeAgresta can correct me if I'm astray here, but this board can later take a position that, this just isn't working out, we're not having enough time, we're going to be adding meetings, and then we just send that off to the Commissioner of Education. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. The board has the ability to set a special school board meeting schedule at any time. So you're setting your regular meeting schedule tonight. If you wish to add to that in the future, you can certainly do that.
Great.
But this is, whatever we approve tonight is what we've got to send to Tallahassee, as this is our scheduled meetings, but they understand we can add meetings. Okay.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
At any time.
Further discussion? Ms. Simchak?
And I'm comforted to know that a larger school district like Palm Beach County has that. And also, I can point out, like, because, I was very involved in county commission meetings, and they go from Tuesday, and they have meetings starting at early in the morning that can sometimes go to 7 o'clock at night, reviewing large road projects. They have to go through their backup material and then go on to the very next week and do another meeting. So I'm just saying it seems doable, I just, can also say that the length of our meetings, maybe it's just, because you have seasons, the amount of items on our agenda, even for being off a month, are not terribly long, if you can go by today's agenda. Although, now that I say that, December's might be awfully thick, but, I'm just saying that there has been times where we've had a very long list. But most trends recently, why? Because we don't have a lot of money. We can't do a lot of spending. But I do appreciate, and I don't like that someone's uncomfortable with it. I wish it was, but, everybody's entitled to their feelings, and I appreciate that. But again, I'd like to support the superintendent on how he feels.
Mrs. Justice, you are recognized.
Thank you. Would it be possible on that workshop meeting day that we set aside some time for committee reports? That's something that I'd like to be able to do a little bit more of, to be able to report on the committees that I'd like to hear more about that. So on those workshop days, if we could set aside just some board time, just maybe to take away from the length of the meeting, the one business meeting.
Well,
I don't
as
know
the
if anyone-
superintendent and the chair set those agendas, that's something I'm certainly open to, and if,
Would definitely consider that.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the past we used to.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Same side? Same side, nay, whatever, okay. The motion passes 4-1. Okay, approval of the meeting place. The Teacher Education Center, TEC, located at J.A. Thompson Administrative Center at 6500 57th Street, Vero Beach, Florida, 32967, is the meeting place unless public interest can best be served by meeting elsewhere. The room is the Teacher Education Center. At this time, I call for a motion.
Move approval.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Justice moves, Mr. Searcy seconds. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign? No. Motion passes 5-0, Ms. Oops, sorry. Ms. Nancy. I never got to say that. I missed that. Oh, hat tip to Matt McCain there. All right. Moving along, official appointments. We do have to, and we can discuss this, but we do have a pretty robust agenda to move through this, so,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
If I could interrupt, I would just like to ask that I'm able to keep my committee appointments for the coming year if possible.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just, I would, just out front, I'm happy with mine as well, but I know you systematically and
Right,
must
right.
procedurally go through.
I was requesting. I'd like to
Sure, no,
request.
that's fine. Okay, let's try this another way. I'm all for expediency. Is there anyone who would request a change in, well, can I do that? Or I can do that by Roberts, but it's not in the script. Do I have to go through the script, is the question. A motion, a second, nomination, all the good stuff.
This first section of the agenda are chairman appointments.
Ah, right,
So
got it.
you don't have to follow the script, but if you could just declare for the minutes who you are appointing to the various committees, and you can certainly request if any board members wish to change or switch or.
Okay. All right, let's do this. MPO, I would like to hold mine if Mrs. Simchek is willing to.
It's fine.
Great. Indian River County Commission's Economic Development Council, committee member and alternate member. Mrs. Zork, last year, you were the primary and Mrs. Justice was the alternate. Would you like, will you continue? Great, thank you. Mrs. Justice, will you continue as
Yes, sir.
alternate? Fantastic. All right. The Indian River County School Health Advisory Committee, SHAC, liaison for this non-voting position. Last year, no one served. Would anyone like to
No, I'd just like to speak to that. We have a number of staff that attend that meeting, so that continues to be a chairman-appointed committee. I know Ms. Jimenez served on that as well, but
Right.
perhaps we could have a staff member do a committee report for us. I don't know that necessarily a board member needs to be present at that meeting. I have attended the meeting, but we do have a number of staff that do attend on our behalf.
Great, thank you for that feedback.
Yes, sir.
I've served on the committee, and I agree. We have about 4 or 5 different staff people that are there. I don't think it's one that we need to
Great,
have.
so I
It's
will-
not a voting position anyway.
Right, and non-voting positions are certainly something we can look at removing. Mr. Superintendent, you and I will work together to perhaps prepare quarterly reports for the committee meetings. and
Understood.
workshop. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll leave that seat vacant. Indian River County Planning and Zoning Commission with an alternate for this 4-year non-voting position. I'm in my 3rd year of a 4-year term on the non-voting liaison P and Z. I'm willing to continue. Mrs. Simchek, will you continue as an
Yes, sir.
alternate? Thank you so much. City of Vero Beach Planning and Zoning, non-voting position. Last year, Mrs. Zork, you served. Would you be willing to continue serving?
That was not a good look.
I will, yes.
You will? Thank you so much. Mrs. Zork is appointed to Vero Beach P and Z. City of Sebastian Planning and Zoning Commission, 3-year term, non-voting position. Last year, Mrs. Simchek served. Are you willing to continue?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You are appointed. City of Fellsmere Planning and Zoning Commission, non-voting position. Last year, Mrs.
Yes,
Simchek
sir.
served. Excellent. You are reappointed. City of Indian River Shores Planning and Zoning Commission, 1-year non-voting position. Mrs. Justice, are you willing to continue?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. You are reappointed. Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments Incorporated committee member. Last year, Mrs. Zork served. Mrs. Zork, would you continue?
Yes, I would.
Thank you so much. You are appointed. Executive Roundtable Committee member for this voting, Executive Roundtable Committee member for this voting position last year was Mrs. Justice,
Wait.
and you've already said you're willing to
Yes, sir.
continue.
Thank you.
Well, I was actually wanting to see if I could serve on this because I was wanting to give up another committee. So,
Oh, okay.
Campaign speech.
and I know
all right.
that there's other committees that you're going to want to be put on.
No, I'm going to ask to be able to stay with the committees that I've currently held for the past year. I've done some work on those committees and only been able to spend 1 year and establish those relationships. I'm hoping to be able to continue the work.
First big decision.
All right. Mrs. Zork,
Well, I
how
think,
would you respond to that?
well, I can appreciate that, but like Ms. Simchek said earlier, we need to really diversify and everyone needs to have a chance to serve on different committees or serve as in different positions.
And I'm not asking to serve in perpetuity. I just have established some things that will be coming in the coming year, sir, and I'd like the ability to be able to see them through.
Valid point. Mrs. Zork, would you like to withdraw your request?
Heads?
Heads? No, that's all right. No, no, I'm not going to do that.
like that,
If I had to, I would, but Mrs. Justice has made a compelling case that she has started projects in motion. I know that the Executive Roundtable is an organization, and perhaps next year, whomever the chair is, will reconsider that. But she makes a compelling case. And Mrs. Justice is reappointed. All right. Now it's board appointments. The board has to decide each of these. Approval of appointment of a citizen to the Indian River County Metropolitan Planning Organization, County Council Advisor for transportation and alternate for this voting position. This is a volunteer position that began on September 11th, 2012. The term of this position coincides with the board's organization meeting. The CAC meets the first Tuesday of the month at 2 p.m. in conference room B1501. The position is currently held by Amy Speak, and the late John Kim was an alternate. Board members will submit names to vote on the committee member and alternate to serve. Call for names of citizens to serve as committee member and/or alternate. Call for a motion. Have we reached out to Mrs. Speak to see if she's willing to continue? And she is? Okay.
Nominate her.
Vote on it?
Okay, Mr. Searcy nominates Amy Speak.
Second.
Okay. Mrs. Zork seconds.
Second. You don't have a second on that.
Okay. All right. And the alternate, Would anyone, do we have anyone, or is that something we'll have to revisit? Mrs. Simchak?
I was wondering, but I can't recall, was there a third person that had put in that we could reach out? Were there applications other than those two last year? I can't remember. And we may want to reach out to that, otherwise should we just,
Leave the alternate vacant? Yep.
I don't have anyone right now.
Okay, so we'll keep the primary in place. We'll look for an alternate to take up at a future date to bring before this board. Okay, so we have Amy as primary. We have Charlie has,
I'll make a motion that we approve Amy Speak.
got it. Mrs. Orr,
Oh,
You want a
definitely
second?
second. Mhm.
great. Any discussion? No. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, approval of appointment of citizen of the Indian River County School Planning Citizen Oversight Committee, RE Interlocal Agreement for Public School Planning for this voting position. Peter Robinson served on this committee since its inception in 2003. The purpose of the committee is to monitor implementation of the interlocal agreement and to report to participating local governments, the district school board, and the general public on the effectiveness with which the interlocal agreement is being implemented. The committee meets once per year on a date and time to be determined. Mr. Robinson submitted a yearly report and agreed to do an additional term. Board members will vote on this
I'll
appointment.
make a motion to approve Pete Robertson.
Second.
Okay, Simchek has made a motion. Mrs. Zork has seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Pete Robinson. Another year in the hopper. All right, approval of appointment of a citizen to the County Commission's Value Adjustment Board for this voting position. Reference Florida Statute 194.015. The Value Adjustment Board is an independent forum created by Florida Statute Chapter 194 to provide property owners with an opportunity to appeal their property value or denial of an exemption, classification, or tax deferral. The committee meets each year as needed. The appointment will be effective upon approval by the County Commission. On January 22nd, 2013, Mr. Todd Heckman was appointed by the school board. The position is for a calendar year tax cycle. Mr. Heckman submitted a yearly report and is interested in serving for an additional term. At this point, call for motion.
Recommend Todd Heckman.
Okay, Mr. Searcy recommends Mr. Todd Heckman.
Second.
Mrs. Zork seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of appointment to the County Commission Value Adjustment Board, one committee member and one alternate for this voting position. Reference Florida Statute 194.015. The Value Adjustment Board is an independent forum created by Florida Statute Chapter 194 to provide property owners with an opportunity to appeal their property value or denial of an exemption, classification, or tax deferral. The committee meets each year as needed. The appointment will be effective upon approval by the County Commission. Last year, Mr. Searcy was appointed as committee member and Mrs. Simchek was appointed as an alternate. Are there any other board members interested on the VAB? Mr. Searcy, are you willing to serve
I'm
another
willing,
term?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that enthusiastic show of support. Mrs.
Been there,
Simchek,
done
are
that.
you
I'm fine
willing?
with that, too.
Okay, and the alternate is Mrs. Simchek. At this point, call for a motion.
I move.
Mrs. Justice moves approval. Mrs. Zorks, I'll second, actually.
Second.
You can
Okay,
second,
Mrs., yeah,
Do we need to second
Okay.
a nomination?
it's in the script.
Okay.
I'm just reading the
It's a
script.
motion. It's a
Right.
Who
motion.
seconded
It's a
it?
motion, okay. Any discussion? Mrs. Zork seconded.
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Approval of appointment as District School Board's Legislative Liaison for this non-voting position. The Legislative Liaison position was established by this District School Board on November 22nd, 2011. The position requires extensive knowledge of local, state, and federal issues. Last year, Mrs. Zork was appointed as the District School Board's Legislative Liaison. Are there any other interested board members?
I'll move from Ms. Zork. If she'll accept it.
Second. What about you?
I'm the chair.
What's that mean?
I mean, I could be, but I think that, I think that you did a good job.
You're gonna have plenty to do.
Well, that's
That's a
very
better
nice
I
of
have to
you. I
say, in
appreciate
thinking
that.
about it, I think you did do a very good job, and I was really happy with the legislative platform that we were able to come up with this year. You really took the time to put it together and make sure we talked about it a lot, and I just thought you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, call for a motion.
Move
Oh,
approval.
Mr. Searcy already gave us a motion of Laura Zorg, and Mrs. Justice seconded that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Have the Marco Cubio at Andrews, it's delicious. All right, approval of appointment to Moonshot Community Action Network for this non-voting position. The committee is comprised of community leaders in support of the Moonshot goal. Normally, they meet once every month. Well, last year, Mrs. Justice was appointed.
Ms. Justice, I recommend Ms. Justice.
Okay, Mr. Zort, or Mr. Searcy.
Mr. Zorg.
I'm just, right?
That's a conflict.
Conflict, all right.
Wrong board.
Wrong committee.
Wrong
You know, see,
board.
that's what I get for watching county commission.
This morning,
Yeah.
right.
Meetings in the morning and then coming to work at night. All right, so Mr. Searcy has nominated Mrs. Justice.
Does she serve?
Yes,
Will you serve?
yes, I would. But I would just like to say that it's a non-voting position. I welcome all board members to attend the Moonshot Community Action Network anytime you want to attend it. It's a really neat group of people that come together that support literacy in our schools. And every board member is always invited for the meetings. And I'm going to do a better job of making sure that I submit those committee reports to Nancy, or we do that at our, just to keep everyone up to date. But I hope everyone, if you have time, you attend.
Great, and I have attended them. There have been some concerns about the locations and the sunshine and things like that, but I would certainly also encourage fellow board members whenever possible to attend the ones where they aren't restricted environments where only one can attend. But, and I look forward to your updates.
Thanks.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do
Can I
I have a
just-
second?
We didn't get a second yet, did we?
I'll second it.
Okay.
But I just want to expand for the board members that weren't here, which, you know, there was, in the past, there was a meeting at Johns Island, which is a private community, so
Right.
it wasn't open to the public. So if there's a public meeting and we can attend, can you let Nancy know to shoot us an email?
Absolutely. I actually think they're posted, the Moonshot, they've actually been holding them here
Right.
in the
Okay.
TEC.
And that's the, I just figured to give some
Great.
historic value to the thoughts of, you know, that you get nervous, but as long as they're in the public forum, that's great.
Absolutely.
Second? I second.
Dale second, Dale
Mrs.
second.
Simchak.
Oh, Dale already seconded? All right, very good.
You got to keep him straight.
I know, right?
He did.
I'm ready to go. Because we're up against it, guys. All right, all
Vote,
those in
vote,
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Approval of appointment to Central Florida Public School Board Coalition. The Central Florida Public School Board Coalition meets the first or second Monday of every month in Orlando at the Ronald Blocker Educational Leadership Center. The coalition is comprised of 16 school districts from the Central Florida area. Are there any, oh, this says other, but are there any interested board members?
I would like to serve.
Okay. Mrs. Justice would like to serve?
I just have a question.
Certainly.
Being that this is legislative, can we both attend?
If noticed, and it's more than 100, right?
With regard to school boards, there isn't really a mileage limit. It's within the bounds of your district is where board members meet.
Oh,
It's where board meetings can be held.
okay.
So I could speak to,
Um,
could I?
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to note, I know we first talked about this on December 13th. This was brought up, and I had attended, Dr. Rendell discussed it, and it was something that I was really interested in, because as we aren't members of FSBA or, you know, as a group, I think there is really some good things to be said about meeting. I inquired quite a bit, and then I brought it up again on September 26th, actually, during a discussion session, just about the fact that this group, again, was available to us. And I know you expressed some concerns about legislative platform, and, you know, so I reached out to some of the people on the committee to ask them. And it really isn't a legislative issue at this point. They don't really advocate in that way anymore because of some of the issues that have come up. It's really a lot of best practice, sharing kind of what's working for you, what hasn't been working for you. We all share a lot of the same issues that come up for our district, happen in other places in this school district. And I have two commitments if I served. Number one, I'll give a thorough committee report so that everyone is aware. And secondly, that I will make sure to respect, as Ms. Simchek had expressed, that our board needs to hold our opinions true, and that I would never speak on behalf of this board in any legislative way, that the purpose of that would not be this.
And this is a voting position? Mr. Superintendent, you're a little familiar.
I do not believe they have any votes. Again, they don't take any unified stances on anything like, it's actually a coming together and sharing of best practices. Usually what will happen is, it's my understanding is, they might identify a topic that they want to share information on. So the next month they might all come, prepared to share information on how they're handling an influx of new students from Puerto Rico or something like that. I don't believe there's any votes taken or anything like that.
Okay. Mrs. Zork, would you be interested in serving as an alternate?
I would, but to just be clear, so two of us could not attend the meetings together. I mean, not ride over together, but be in the same place if it's publicly noticed.
If one person is serving as the appointee and then someone else just comes to sit in the audience, then that's certainly acceptable, and we would have Ms. Esplin properly notice that is going to be taking place. I misunderstood. I thought you wanted two board members to be appointed to the coalition. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
And can I? I don't plan on, but I think that having, in that situation is very healthy. Just as you are a legislative platform, representative, that if I happen to be in Tallahassee, as long as it's consistent and I'm using myself as a board member, Dale Simchek is different, but as long as I'm representing myself as a school board member and I am advocating and being a legislative, for pushing our platform, the more more ears, and I think that it's very healthy. So if you want to, I'm glad that you want to attend. That's great.
Absolutely.
Because you might hear something, beneficial just as well. More people, more ears on it. You hear, you bring home stuff. So I'm glad.
Yeah, I agree.
And there is nothing in Sunshine about cohabitating a vehicle. It's just one of those best practices that keeps the media away.
It's typically the perception
Right.
that gets
Just
you,
don't
as
talk about
opposed to anybody
business.
violating the law. It's the perception of it.
May I- And maybe this would be, anything out of county, are representatives allowed to take a county vehicle, or even people attending to take a county vehicle?
Well, this
You know,
one,
a
superintendent
district
goes.
vehicle
So,
Yes.
to go,
Yes.
okay, I just want to make sure.
so, yeah, the
That's good.
superintendent's taking a govie, probably, right? Yeah.
When is the meeting time? It's on Monday?
I believe it's at 1 o'clock.
First or second Monday?
First or second Monday of each month.
Doesn't that conflict with your meeting with staff?
Yeah, but it's something that, I'm sure I could work around for once a month, I think,
And the cost?
I
$100.
believe it's $100 for the
For the year.
school board to be a member for a whole year. So it's,
Move for approval of Ms. Justice and alternate Mrs. Ork.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Simcheck
I got it.
seconded. Oh, did you? Oh, I was going to give it to
Second.
her.
I just can't make a motion, and technically, there's sometimes you do. Anyway. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, information, staff appointments to Indian River County committees. Attached, you'll find a list of staff appointments to Indian River County committees that are required by law and approved by the superintendent for the 2018 calendar year. Mr. Superintendent, you approve these?
I do recommend approval.
Outstanding, thank you so much. Agnes Peebles Memorial Scholarship Committee, as per the legal trust agreement established in 1953, the chairman of the school board of Indian River County and the principal of Vero Beach High School serve as the chairman of this scholarship committee.
Sean, that's you.
That's me. I will be excited to do that because I got to do it my first year on the board, and it's such a neat opportunity. Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say that would be a lovely article, because the history of that lady leaving that money for women who could not attend college in the 50s, investing it in AT&T, and I will say the interest is what's paying scholarships for many women who would not, young ladies who would not be able to attend. And it's open to all schools, including the charter and the, all of our high schools. So I just thought that would make a lovely story. And any young ladies out there who are not aware, please look at our website when the applications can be submitted to our secretary.
And I would like to recognize Mr. O'Keefe, who does a lot of work on this. It's a very lengthy process, and he puts in a lot of work on interviews and to make the best decisions he can, and he's in the audience. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize him for all his hard work on the Agnes Peoples, and it's a fantastic program that actually is now, they're funding off the interest, so it's a really phenomenal program. Thank you for bringing light to that, Mrs. Simchek. And I love them pitch stories here. Okay, County School Planning Elected Officials Oversight Committee. Membership bylaws require that the chairman of the school board hold this position. The committee meets annually here in June.
Sean, that's you.
That's me, and I accept it. Anything else? No further business before the board. We are adjourned.
What time? What time? What time?
Something I've looked into. This is
You have to
actually
spin
very
around in the
interesting
chair.
about, yeah. (5:46), November 21st, 2017, at the Teacher Education Center. This is the Board of Directors Leasing Corporation Organization meeting. I have called the meeting to order. The appointment of Chairman of School District Board of the Leasing Corporation, President-elect.
I nominate Sean Frost.
Okay,
I second that.
okay, Mrs. Zork has seconded. Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. The motion carries unanimously. Appointment, item B, our next item, appointment of Vice Chairman of District School Board as the Vice President of the Leasing Corporation. And this also says President-elect. You can't both be President-elect.
I nominate Charles Searcy.
Okay, Mrs. Zork nominates Charles Searcy, and Mrs. Simchek has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries unanimously. Item C, appointment of the superintendent of schools as secretary treasurer of the Leasing Corporation, also president-elect. The purpose of this action item is to officially designate the superintendent of schools as secretary treasurer of the Leasing Corporation as per bylaws of the corporation. At this point, I'll call for a motion.
Move for approval.
Mr. Searcy moves approval. Mrs. Justice has seconded. Okay, all those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries, any opposed? No, the motion carries unanimously. At this point, is there anyone who would like to speak publicly to this meeting? There are no forms entered, and we have no public
Receive any
input.
requests?
We have not received any requests. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Action agenda, approval of the minutes. The minutes of the Leasing Corporation business meeting held November 22nd, 2016.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Simchek moves approval. Mrs. Justice has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion, any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And with no further business before this board, we are adjourned.